Epstein writes, evolution. Luck?
Brain
Chance.
organoids.
Evolution's not growth. One needs mutation.
The Matrix.
Change to function.
Yeah.
Directed evolution.
Same pods too.
Directed evolution.
Or
Not natural selection. Not random chance. Guided.
Imagine if our directed evolution means that all of our beautiful DNA that God, the creator of everything and everyone, that should be changed into Jeffrey Epstein DNA. No, that's devolution. That's not evolution.
Francis Arnold, Caltech.
Linus Pauling, professor of chemical engineering, bioengineering, and biochemistry. Man, they wanted me to go into bioengineering. Every time I heard that word back in the day when I was still like before my studies and in my studies, I always like recoiled in some way. It always made me feel uneasy that they're even researching that back in the day, before we even were thinking about these things, when it was science fiction.
She won the Nobel Prize in 2018 for the directed evolution of enzymes. She offered to teach Epstein about breeding molecules in microbes. Epstein was interested, but not in microbes. EFTA 017853666. And then there's this line. Virtual womb for all those preemies we are breeding.
Matrix chat.
Preemies we are breeding. Virtual wombs. He's telling you. This is the body side of the pipeline. Breed better humans, grow them in artificial wombs, direct the evolution, build the vessel.
The
Part one was
Island,
about genetics,
absolutely, that was...
But now you see why.
I've been thinking a lot about that
The
movie
genetics
lately.
weren't a separate project. They were stage 4.
It had underground bases in it too, right? And they were using the organs for the celebrities and cloning centers.
This is where it all connects. And this is the part that nobody has reported. EFTA 02642274. How do savants know?
What did this say?
EFTA
What if consciousness is genetic?
02642274.
Meaning it's stored in the genes.
They never learn.
Memories.
My explanation is
genetic
memory. The genetic transmission of knowledge. Genetic memory. The idea that knowledge, consciousness itself, can be passed through DNA. Not taught or learned, inherited.
You know what this brings me to think? And maybe I've already thought of this and maybe I've put it in a quote after this video. But in the Bible it says, you shall not consume blood because life is in the blood. Life is in the blood. Life.
If that's true, then consciousness isn't just software running on the brain. It's encoded in the genes. And if it's in the genes, you can breed for it, edit for it, select for it. Part 1 was genetics. This is consciousness.
I met with Goma, a celebrated Japanese musician who, after a head injury, is now an accomplished artist as well, an acquired savant with an entirely different skill post-injury. Some of these savants have been part of documentaries. They sure have. I've seen some of those. The workup, as usually imaging studies look for the spot of savant syndrome. The imaging what if Mozart had a weird brain injury before he started writing music? Holy shit. Produces very pretty pictures of TV, but very little illumination of what has happened. Imaging, impressive as it is, just is not sensitive enough yet, even DTI or DTT, to pinpoint the underlying defects at the synapse level of what if it's not a defect? What if the defect was there before the injury and actually the injury did something, chain reaction, to fix the defect? Defects of the synapse level of the savant syndrome, creativity, and even autism. More productive results will come from carefully designed, intricate neuropsychological testing. Interesting.
Part 1 was genetics. This is consciousness. And Epstein believed they were the same thing. Chopra's response to this email.
So that puts you into a whole different thought when you take into consideration that these people drink, eat, consume human blood. And if he believes that the consciousness is inside of the genetics, meaning when he consumes it, he's eating the soul of a person, man, that just makes you realize how evil this is. Because it's one thing to have like a completely non-spiritual cannibal just enjoying the taste, right? But to be eating it and believing that the consciousness of the person is inside of their body, meaning the flesh, in the blood, and they're eating it and doing all the satanic rituals,
makes it even darker. In the same thread, same
believing
EFTA,
that gives them power.
Chopra pushes back with a detail that changes everything. He tells Epstein about an acquired savant with an entirely different skill post-injury.
Oh, we already read that.
Acquired savants. People who suffer brain injuries, car accidents, strokes, trauma, and wake up with abilities they never had before.
Chat, I have a
music.
question. Have you ever had a dream and inside the dream you spoke in a different language that you actually don't know in real life? I once had a dream in German, and the only thing I know how to say in German is I love you. So that was weird. Very, very, very weird. Then again, it makes me question, was it real German? Or was my brain going nuts, thinking that I'm talking in German, but I'm actually not?
Calendar calculation, photographic memory, skills that appear from nowhere after the brain is damaged. If trauma can unlock abilities that were always encoded in the brain.
Here we are. We're finally connecting one of the last parts of this whole stream. And I hope, actually, I know that I'm not going to be able to do the whole thing today, but next stream, definitely we're continuing with this. But here we are. This is what he was doing, and that's why he was not the only reason, but one of the reasons of why he was traumatizing so many people.
Abilities you never learned, abilities that might come from genetic memory. Then Epstein's experiments on women take on a different dimension. Was he testing whether psychological trauma could trigger altered states of consciousness? Whether breaking someone's normal awareness could unlock something underneath? He was measuring belief thresholds with 200 women. He was funding research on savant telepathy in children with neurological differences. And now Chopra is telling him that brain damage creates savants?
So it's called trauma-based mind control. And it's a very, very old technique being used on people for thousands of years. It's not something new. Also, just from a purely non-spiritual perspective, if you're an atheist, you would know that people who have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, meaning they have been through complex trauma or multiple trauma throughout a long period of time, they would have certain sets of behaviors, meaning, for example, hypervigilance. They are extremely hypervigilant. They can recognize a person walking from their steps, even if they have like multiple people as their housemates. Like there's certain skills which are more like survival mechanisms that go inside a person that can be used as skills by the dark side. And that's only the purely flesh related aspect of it. But he was traumatizing women and children, and this is usually done in a very early age. So that explains also, not only through PDF, file love, why he was doing it to so many young children. And why it was never like a one-time thing, usually.
Well, wasn't a side effect of the research.
Let me kill that.
But actually a variable. Deepak Chopra was pushing the same idea, but from the other direction. Chopra's book, Super Genes, argues that the evolution of species is the evolution of consciousness.
I feel like Chopra is full of shit. I've never liked Chopra, and now I understand why, but like his theories have always been like, oh my god, where did you come from with this?
The genes don't just build bodies, they build awareness. a session titled Gene Editing in Consciousness. Whoa, a conference on gene editing in consciousness connected to Epstein's network. That's the bridge. The genetics program from part 1 and the consciousness program from part 3 meet in one room. And the thesis is, edit the genes, edit the mind. But let's talk about this Dmitry Itskov. Russian tech billionaire, founder of the 2045 initiative, and his public mission is to achieve human immortality through mind uploading by the year 2045. EFTA 020-78308, May 2015. Itskov and Gino Yu, EFTA 020-78308, May 2015.
Leslie Groff again.
Itskov and Gino Yu, Epstein's consciousness recruiter,
Piatnica.
arranging to meet in New York. They already know each other, both in Epstein's orbit, the mind-uploading billionaire and the consciousness stage mapper connecting through Epstein. The same month, Epstein writes to Itskov,
Chomsky.
I spent the weekend with Chomsky at my house. Great, strong views, but clever. Noam Chomsky, the most cited intellectual of the 20th
I made
century,
him in The Sims
and
too.
in the same thread, Itskov
He's going in
mentions
our
meeting a
island
Buddhist
house as
monk
well.
who works for MIT and is interested in AI. We discussed possible AI self-awareness. Then, Epstein sends Itskov a link to Rupert Sheldrake's online telepathy test. So Jeffrey Epstein sends the mind-uploading billionaire
They're talking about a balance between a threat and engagement. And that's what defines us?
a telepathy experiment. Sheldrake's morphic resonance, the idea that consciousness extends beyond the brain, that minds can connect at a distance. This is another bridge. Mind uploading meets telepathy meets AI self-awareness meets genetic
How
memory
you doing?
in one email chain.
Epstein
In
Cinematic
part 2,
Universe, Sky
I showed you
forbid.
the occult library. Now you might have thought that that was separate from the science.
Probably
but it's
once
not.
a week or so. That's
Epstein
fine.
didn't see a difference. To him, Newton was an alchemist and a physicist. Consciousness was a genetic trait and a mystical state.
Oh, they're talking about the Philosopher's Stone. I knew it. I knew it. Difference between unexplainable and the occult. Yeah.
Consciousness was a genetic trait and a mystical state. The soul was dark matter and something you could upload. Okay, but everything that I've shown you so far, the
Ooh.
brain mappers, the
Yeah, that
mystical state,
movie. What
the
was
soul
it
was
called?
dark matter
Inception.
and something you could upload.
Have you guys seen Inception?
Okay, but everything that I've shown you so
I think Inception is a good example of how actually spiritual warfare works in real life with dreams.
far, the brain mappers, the AI theorists, the VR rigs, the cryonics evaluations, all of it sounds like cutting edge research, and you maybe could argue
Black
that it's
Mirror
noble.
stuff.
But now let me show you who the test subjects were.
Mm.
EFTA 024-02848. David Savage asked Epstein, you did an experiment with 200 girls where you held their
Things
hands and
always have a
rating
plot
them?
twist.
And Epstein responds,
How long between the moment that you try to control it and the moment that you wake up?
I did this with 200 girls. Each one had to rate the accuracy of diagnosis on a scale of 1 to 10. The written diagnosis was exactly the same for each.
Intuitive abilities?
What? 200 girls given the same fake reading, and he's measuring how many of them believed it.
Hold on.
Fake reading.
It would almost validate the sixth sense. What if I did readings blindfolded, so I held someone's hand and fell into them?
Reading, and he's measuring how many of them believed it. EFTA 024-53747. Then Epstein designs another round for Savage. 10 women, you will need to touch each one. And his takeaway from all of this? Believing is more fun. But he's not debunking
That's actually
anything.
true, Howdy.
He was measuring who could be made to believe and how fast. 200 women, the same fake
Brainwashing.
reading, and scoring their conviction. But why touch? Well, because a neuroscientist told him that it works.
Oof. memories in the body.
EFTA 0.
Also, this reminds me of the EMDR type of treatment for people with post-traumatic stress disorder. They do with tapping. So if you're trying to like override a traumatic memory by tapping, what if he was trying to deceive them by touch? It works together with the touch. That's interesting.
2192305. Peter Fenwick, the same man running the Cosmic Consciousness program, tells Epstein that touch activates their hormonal system and that dominance hierarchy matters. So the science wasn't separate from the exploitation. Okay, but the women knew.
And it was
Listen to what they
traumatic
wrote.
touch.
EFTA 027-21399. A woman writes to Epstein, "You described me as a failed experiment. I didn't know that I was a part of one. Am I an unsuspecting Galatea or a pawn in your dealings with Leon? Am I an unsuspecting Galatea? Galatea from Greek mythology. Pygmalion sculpts the perfect woman and brings her to life. So this woman is asking Epstein, am I one of your unsuspecting creations that you sculpted and brought to life?"
Jesus
EFTA 018626162. Another email about a different woman. Quote, "For me, it's a great experiment. Taking a girl who hadn't been with a guy until she was 23 and then getting her to this point. She is sufficiently confused, and I think you can get some mileage out of this."
Look at the quotations. Jeffrey killed me with his words. She has said that.
What?
The fact that they're saying she's sufficiently confused and I think you can get some mileage out of it, and then a smiley face gets my blood boiling.
She is sufficiently confused. You can get some mileage. A great experiment. Now, with this context, he's using the same word for the woman that he used for the consciousness research. Experiment. We have to consider whether they were a part of the same program. These spiritual practices and ideas weren't separate from the exploitation. They were the same delivery mechanism. EFTA 017436615. A message about Kundalini yoga class. Meet me at class 9:30. So many hot girls promise. Abundant. At a Kundalini class.
Look
And
at
then there
what
are
it
the-
says. 30 between 6 and 7.
At a Kundalini class. And then there are the meeting notes. EFTA 020457779. Action items from Epstein's meeting. Design fun experiments, e.g. mice on DMT and environmental medicine meme. Mice on DMT? That was the brainstorming idea at Epstein's meeting? Design a fun experiment, psychedelics on animals, and create a meme around environmental medicine.
Yeah,
So that's the
howdy.
brand for their research?
It is definitely like in the days of Noah. We made that
022271445.
connection earlier before
January
you joined stream,
2019,
but this is definitely the
6 months
agenda.
before his arrest. Gino Yu writes to Epstein, "I will also have a shaman with me, as well as a psychonaut that grows his own mushrooms." A shaman and a mushroom grower traveling with the consciousness
Of course, this is going to be
recruiter,
connected to
coordinated in the same
psilocybin.
email chain as Yoshabat. EFTA 026762253. We talked about this in part 2. Sacred Space, New York. An invoice to Epstein.
10,000
50
dollars.
digital urban detox solution
ritual?
massage rituals. Digital. At $200 each? Total $10,000. Pre-purchased in bulk
Bro.
through JP Morgan Chase.
This is crazy.
Massage rituals. Digital.
Let me see if there's anything
She
else
tried
that
to
connects
swim.
to.
In his assessment, her attempt showed no greater level of distress than he'd seen
Okay,
in other
yeah,
girls
this is
throughout the
getting
years.
too dark. Girls trying to escape the island. But this connects to the trauma-based mind control. He's trying to see if people can develop extra powers, right? Superior type of talents to become savants by being injured in the brain, trying to apply trauma into people using mind control. And this is also something that they use in order to control people. So what this type of technique does is it actually splits the brain because the trauma is so intense that the psyche, the soul cannot handle it, and it splits. And it's like, I don't know if you've ever met anyone who's been extremely traumatized in their childhood and never healed their traumas. They can be sometimes very childish and infantile in some ways. That's because like a part of their soul, a part of their psyche is still at that age. And this can split the personality, and in modern times we call this DID, or dissociative identity disorder. And some people are walking around with like multiple identity disorder, but each of these little cells inside the soul of the person can be separate and not aware of the other. And so satanic cults have been doing this mainly to their own children for God knows how long, maybe for centuries, maybe for thousands of years, in order to brainwash and create a sleeper cell or a controllable spy persona inside of a person. They can only be handled, hence we call them handlers, by the person with the codes, by the person with the trigger words and the trigger colors and the trigger smells and whatnot, trigger memories. Anything can be a trigger. Basically, they're using people like robots. That's what this does.
And this is how you have a lot of people who don't remember their childhood. Some of them don't remember anything from their childhood. Some of them remember only fractions of their childhood. And if done systematically, in a sadistic
I have not
manner,
watched that,
as
but it's in
usually
a
it
lot
is
of
done.
movies. That's basically how they create super soldiers, and MI6 they used to do this. I don't know how many MIs are there already, but like secret services do that a lot,
A
and the
fracture
bloodlines do that to their own
can be
children.
created in the consciousness of the child, and it's as if, just like Max Spears' OP soul is free now.
Remember seeing an interview with Britney Spears where the woman interviewing her appears to use an activation phrase on her and she starts crying. Is it the one where she was talking about the breakup with Justin Timberlake? That interview? Do you remember? Yeah, what they did with Britney was awful.
Just as Max Spears used to say, you create a honeycomb of the consciousness of that child, and it's as if each and every cell of that honeycomb has a button, a trigger,
Absolutely Vankta.
an access point, and the manipulator.
It's called an amnesiac barrier around that memory, and once you start healing and you're healed enough to be able to deal with it, those memories will start coming back normally. The ID, yes.
Or the abuser or the handler has the access or the key or the trigger word to that specific type of a cell of their consciousness. Now, if you view this in psychological manner, this could be identified as dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder, where you can have a couple of different personalities in just one body, and different things would trigger the different personalities. Now, all of this is extremely evil and sadistic.
Yeah, it's sadistic. I don't know if I wanted anything from here. Man, I'm having like heart palpitations while viewing this. Crazy. And I think I have Max Spears here. Of course I do.
Begins.
This is the person that I've been telling you about. He was murdered after this lecture. Days or weeks after this lecture. And in the beginning of this lecture, this is a lecture that he did in Poland. He said that he'd been getting crazy spiritual attacks before it. And he touched upon a lot of things that are connected to what's happening today. This was in 2016. He himself has been traumatized to a point where it's hard to talk sometimes, and this is absolutely normal for complex trauma victims. So, no, he's not drunk. No, he's not a drug addict. It's normal. So, have that in mind.
With me, the trauma began whilst in the womb of the mother. So
Weird hello and freaks out.
So
That's
whilst
terrible.
the fetus is inside the woman,
You'll see a lot of clips where like celebrities seem like stuck, or like news anchors just like freeze, and it makes you wonder like what happened to the handler? Did they go to the bathroom? Like what? I'm laughing about it, but it's not fun. It's not funny at all.
If the mother is then traumatized, then that in turn traumatizes the child immediately. Okay, so as I said, trauma began in the womb of the trauma begins in the womb of the mother, and then the child is then taken away from the mother immediately, and then there are a number of different ways to traumatize, to split the mind of the child so that it creates alters, like maybe like a honeycomb, a beehive honeycomb. The information about how to fracture the psyche of a child, which has to be done before the age of 3. If it's done after the age of 3, it doesn't have the same effect. So it has to be done before the child is 3 years old.
Which kind of explains why they have so much to do with babies and toddlers. Even though most of the babies and the toddlers that these people today are dealing with are what they call disposable children, which is such a terrible term. But they do this to their own children too.
There are a number of different ways to do it. One of the most efficient ways, which is 99% used in fracturing the mind, is electric shock treatment. This information is not new information. I think some people believe that this information
like
was around and just began
Stranger
in the
Things,
Second World War.
It was
didn't,
taken
in fact,
from these
begin
projects.
then. They were doing this 5,000 years ago, and it's detailed in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. What I'm trying to explain is the reasoning behind doing that. The reason behind fracturing the mind is so that when the mind is fractured through trauma, whether it is sexual trauma, whether it is physical trauma, violence, the mind fractures itself and creates an amnesiac barrier around that, so that you don't have to keep reliving the experience over and over again.
Yeah, it's like a protection mechanism.
Okay. So after the Second World War, the Nazi scientists had refined the technique of how it should be done. So what they did was, in these amnesiac barriers, they then can place triggers, symbols, colors, hand symbols, sounds, to then access the particular altar that has been created through the trauma.
I want to expand on that because I remember now. There is this person online, his name is Nathan Reynolds. I think we've watched one of his videos, his interviews, and I'm remembering now because just to bring on specifics, he did share how his grandfather, if I remember correctly, it doesn't matter like the blood relative connection, but he was traumatized in the bathtub. He was drowned as a kid, and every time he saw either a bathtub or the face of his abuser, that was his trigger. So it can be anything. It can be a smell, it can be a color, it can be a word, it can be anything. It can be a sound, it can be a gesture, it can be so many things, and it's
right.
So diabolical.
So you could theoretically create
and the person
an
just
assassin
splits.
or a spy, or you could or an actor or a musician within these and within the altars, and the person who went whilst in the altar would have no idea that they were anything else but that. So a spy or an assassin that doesn't know that he is a spy or an assassin is the ultimate spy or an assassin, because he can then be questioned or asked a million times, and because he is not aware that he is that, he becomes the ultimate.
Yeah, he'll probably be able to pass the lie detector test even.
Becomes ultimately hidden. He is unaware himself what he is, so he can't be tortured or questioned. Okay, so that's just a very basic overview of how trauma-based mind control works. It is done through, I mean, there's more complexities involved in it, but it becomes very graphic. The techniques used to do this are extremely graphic and extremely horrendous. So I'm going to leave it probably there in that respect.
Okay. And I'm going to continue from this point. We're going to continue with the DNA link, because he actually puts in here information that is like so important. And that's what the elites didn't want to be exposed. I think that's why they killed him. About Project Oak Tree and Project Ibis, and how this actually connects to the agenda of Epstein and friends. And we're going to continue with this next time. Please tell me how to say I love you in Bulgarian so I can say it to Curse. Ooh, I shall teach her too. But Curse and Slim, listen up. The way you say I love you to each other in Bulgarian is 2 words. Very short 2 words. You guys ready? Обичам те. Обичам means I love, and te is you. So, обичам те. Thank you for asking. So let me just put some nice music for us so we can shed the bad energy from all this dark information. I share it purely informatively, because knowledge is power when you're trying to survive in this dangerous dark world. I feel like the more you know, the better you're equipped. Not taking the wrong decision with COVID, for example, and with what's going to be coming. But this is absolutely a war on the body, a war on the human body, a war on our connection to the Creator. And if we stay connected to God, connected to the Creator, connected to that inner knowing, that intuition, that Holy Spirit, we're very hard to be deceived. More than that, we're protected and we're loved. And if you're a believer in Jesus, He has given us authority in His name to trample on snakes and bind and cast out demons out of people. So there's nothing to be afraid of, even though we live in very dark times. I hope this was somehow useful, valuable to you, even though it was kind of dark. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this whole stream. It's been very meaningful to me, and I know it's not the usual topic, and I really appreciate you being here for it. I'm super happy. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody, and I shall see you next time. I don't know when that's gonna be. Stay tuned, and hopefully very, very, very soon. With God's help. Okay, guys.